And we're live. Content provided at the event is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged, may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial, do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, registered investment advisor, and separate entity from LPL. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Amanda.
What's going on, Amanda?
Well, I guess my little robot that I was joking about last week did not come through to fruition because I had to read that by myself.
Well, keep working on that.
Do any of you guys have robots at home?
Yes,
Do we
and his name
consider
is
these?
Jeff.
I think the coolest robot, and it's been out there for a while, but I think the coolest robot is from a company called iRobot. And it's that little vacuum thing that roams around people's hardwood floors.
What are those called? A Roomba?
I love seeing those things swift away.
That's a good, I wish I had one. That would make me extremely lazy, but they are convenient. How is everyone this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a great day. It's nice, cool, crisp day here in Fishers, or Carmel. I've got to get used to saying Carmel, so it's really nice over here. We're in 3 or 4 different places, aren't we?
Yeah,
We are.
Just north of Warsaw, Indiana, outside of a little town, Leesburg, on Lake Tippecanoe. And, you know, there's still boats in the water up here. And so everybody's trying to get their last cruise in, seeing the autumn leaves. And we'll probably take the fishing boat out this afternoon and do some of that too.
I recarpeted a boat this week, Doug. Did you know that?
You recarpeted a boat?
Yes, sir. Added that to my resume of skills.
Nice. Did you have a staple gun?
We used glue.
Nice. Okay, it's a newer boat.
No, it was an old boat.
If it had carpet in it, it was an old.
It had marine quality plywood on it.
Wow.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know last week we talked about the FedEx Day that we participated in, which gave us an opportunity to each take a little break from our normal office routine and get outside of the box. Debbie, you want to kick off on something that you presented or what you worked on that day?
Sure. So part of this was if it's something that you just don't have time to do, which that was my case. I had been trying to do some technology training for several weeks. And so I decided just to take that time, listen to 5 tutorials for an hour and a half each. Had a huge headache by the time that was over, but it was good. I felt better about it after I got that done and know a little bit more than I did before.
I know I gained a lot from your learning and your time that you spent taking that. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking a bullet for the team. It's a huge help.
How about you, Doug? What did you learn last week or do?
Well, you know, one of the things that I like about what Debbie did during the training, it was Gimbal has several partners. And it's one of the benefits of being an independent is we get to choose who we want to hire and choose who we don't want to work with. And so, you know, a few years ago, we tried a really big technology company to help us with some of our customer relationship management software, and it just wasn't firing on all cylinders. And so we were able to switch gears to a smaller company out of, I believe they're out of California, not sure, but this group has just been so helpful. And so they do these tutorial training videos for us, but they're also available on call. And so they helped me with a project that I was thinking about, tying technology to a handwritten note or a card. And there's a group, and there's several of these companies out there, but you can get online and you can you can write a card. You can choose a picture to drop in. So if I wanted a picture of Keith on my card, I could do that and send it to him and have a nice handwritten note in there. And so it's a, you know, pretty slick piece of technology if you're not wanting to get out and go out to Hallmark today.
I was looking for cards last night at the grocery store, and they were, I mean, most cards are $6. And I know when you presented, Doug, these cards, these cards were well below that. And I know I use an app, and it's $2 to make it, to personalize it, and to send it off. So that's awesome. Keith, how about you?
I had to use my ADD. I had about 5 projects going on because I couldn't stay focused long enough to do one of them. But I was just intrigued by the amount of disclaimers we have to do in most things in our industry. And so I just decided to add a clowning disclaimer to a lot of things. So my daughter Kelly and I walked around Walmart and read disclaimers on products. And if you want some entertainment, read the disclaimers on the stuff you buy to see how safe those disclaimers make you.
I won't be throwing any burritos at you.
It's all good.
At least
what's a burrito gonna do?
They're dangerous. Little do you know, they're very dangerous. Well, good stuff.
Last night, I understand there were 2 guys on 2 TV channels talking about different things, and you know, fortunately for me, I didn't catch any of that. I don't know if anybody else did. I'm gonna have to go back and read what happened, take some of the emotion out for me. That's one way I like to gather the news, is just trying to see it in print. That helps me out quite a bit. But I've been receiving, I would say, continuous questions just about the market and its tie to politics and what's going to happen if this person wins, or what's going to happen if this group is not in anymore. And it's great discussion, and it's kind of fun to think about or talk about the possibilities. But if anything I've seen this past month, September to now, is the market just has ideas of its own. And really, it's interested in efficiencies, it's interested in innovation, and the lessons around the Shreve dinner table is it's interested in supply and demand. And sometimes, you know, supply, you can have oversupply for several different reasons. You can have demand for different reasons. We've got this little fishing boat up here, and I want to get a trailer for it. Well, a fishing boat trailer is no new piece of technology, but the supply is very weak right now. And it's weak because factories shut down and the trailers couldn't be made. And so for those who want it, me and the other person who wants a fishing boat trailer, you know, we're competing. You know, and so it might cost us a little bit more time. I might not get that trailer until maybe November, where I would have liked to have had it, say, in August. But that type of supply and demand compared to the supply and demand of, say, Zoom, the platform that we're using for this call right now, are 2 entirely different things. The demand for Zoom is everybody wants to be on this. If you're a school teacher, you're using it. You know, if you're a business, you're using it. If you're just catching up with college friends over a cocktail night at your homes, you're using it. And so the demand for things are different at different times. And that's something that we're really diving in to see and understand how demand, how supply works inside the stock market. And I would say, as 2020 goes, for my professional development and work environment, supply and demand has been one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. And I've seen it here in 2020. And so it's just, it's been fun to watch and fun to track. And I don't know, Keith, if you've enjoyed watching supply and demand. Early on, you wrote, or you talked about the toilet paper issue.
Yeah.
Even kind of as that was just getting cool. But what are you seeing in supply and demand out there?
I can't think of a time during my lifetime that supply and demand has been as disrupted as it is during this season right now. I got a phone call. I can't remember if we mentioned last week that they tore the house down behind our office. Then they brought a big old backhoe the size of New York in here to dig a basement this week in the former place where the house was a week ago. And there's progress going on behind us there. But I got a call from the builder yesterday asking permission to drive his forklift across our yard. And so I was doing some negotiating with him in that process of some stuff I needed done. And the reason he had to do that was, I haven't looked in a few weeks, but the price of lumber, I think, has probably tripled in 2020. And so that has a ripple effect in places that you might not have imagined. Like your house that you live in very well might have gone up in value just because of the lumber inside of it, because a new build house will be more expensive because they have to pay 3 times the amount they paid for lumber back in January. And so that is supply and demand that's affecting you in ways maybe you never thought about it. And so I know right here where our office is, there are very few, if none, I don't think there's any houses for sale anywhere close to here. So the existing home sales are down in our economy, which would seem very pessimistic in a normal economy. But the reason they're down is because there's no supply. And so, so that's it. Then if you take the other side of that, what it's doing is new home construction is shooting through the roof, and those new homes are going to be more expensive than they were a year ago because of those lumber prices. So there's all kinds of crazy variations. We talked about toilet paper, boat trailers, hot tubs, swimming pools, all these things that you wouldn't have thought of. The supply got disrupted, and at the same time, demand shot through the roof for maybe just a perceived thing. Like I can't explain why toilet paper demand. I understand why the supply dropped off because of just a panic, but why the demand picked up was beyond anything I could even explain.
And so when you're looking at supply and demand in your own life, just remember what you learned in high school economics class. Think back, what is it? What is supply and demand? What are we using more in our households? What are we not doing? And one of the things we're not doing is we're not going out to the movies anymore. I've seen where a couple movie theaters have shut down, and just thinking with opportunity lenses for you and your family. We got a weekend coming up. Some of you are on fall break. Some of you get 2 weeks for fall break. I like to explain to my kids that businesses don't have fall breaks. They all think that we should. but what are you going to be doing with your time? And just thinking with opportunity in mind. You're going to have a certain supply of time, and you've got some opportunity ahead of you. And so some of you have kids or grandkids who might even have video games. And now might be a great time to jump on the video game console with them and play some games. This relates to stocks. There are big companies out there who've done really well in the processing of speed and storage capabilities inside computers, but some of those trends are even shifting to smaller companies who've been very innovative in the gaming space. And so you can talk about supply and demand even as you're playing a video game with your son or granddaughter. The other thing is watching movies online, playing some games around the house, but just looking for ways to take advantage and see opportunity with the supply of time you have, I think will be an important thing, especially as we dive into winter.
Let's dive into the markets a little bit. Let me show you a couple things and just kind of share my screen here if I can get to it real quick here. So Do you see the CBOE volatility index? Is that what you guys see on your screens there?
No, we're seeing a comparison of Amazon and FDX.
All right, well, let's talk about that first then, since that's what you got. You still see that, or did it switch?
Now I see mountains.
Now you see it.
I do love that picture.
There you go.
What I was thinking the other day, and I don't know, and this is along those same lines of supply and demand. I was thinking, what has changed in my experience in the last 12 months? Because like I noticed that FedEx doesn't come into my neighborhood as much as it used to. I don't know if you all are noticing that as well, but I've noticed probably, I would bet 5 times more, maybe 10 times more Amazon trucks than FedEx in my neighborhood.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And what that tells me is that Amazon has become a little bit of a transportation company. I don't know if you thought about that they've had to spend, I bet, billions of dollars on those vans that they bought. And so they started by, wiping out Borders bookstore years ago. And I was just curious, what are they doing to things like FedEx, and how's that impacting the world? Well, I was shocked to see that I expected to see FedEx's stock price to drop. And this is just a comparison that over the last 12 months, as shocking as it may sound, is that FedEx is doing just as well as Amazon, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. My gut feeling was FedEx would have dropped because of less FedEx in my neighborhood, but what might have happened is that maybe Amazon had negotiated too good of a price with FedEx, and now FedEx profit margin is shooting up, which has driven their stock price. Well, that low profit margin business has shifted over to Amazon's business and had diluted their profits. I don't know, time will tell what happened. I just found that to be an interesting exercise. But then what I wanted to, so you guys can all ponder that, but then what I wanted to show you, can you see the SIBO now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is, over here to the left of the screen is, this tells you how volatile the markets are. It gives you a benchmark. And last year we talked about this, between the 15 and 20 is kind of where this thing ranged down here. Then we had the panic of the springtime hit, and it shot all the way up to 85. And even with the decline and the resurgence of the market, it's still trading at 26, almost 27, which is still unusually high, which means this market has a good amount of volatility in it. And so it is one that is going to take a little bit of patience from time to time. But I remain optimistic. I don't know about you, Doug.
Oh, yeah. And just hearing from you when we talk on the phone with the clients, I'm hearing optimism come from clients, saying, hey, what if a vaccine was in play today? And there are several companies who are on the fast track of doing this. Would that change the volatility? Would people be more optimistic or less optimistic? Probably more. And that would allow some businesses to get back up and running again. I stopped in a Chick-fil-A on my way up here yesterday, and I walked inside just to see what it looked like. And the Chick-fil-A was closed down, the dining room was closed down, and the guy wiping down the chairs told me that they would reopen in 2021. They'd reopen the dining room. But you know what he was doing? He was wiping down the chairs. He was keeping it clean. And so I think there's this level of optimism that people are looking forward, and they can see getting back to normal, doing things again, going outside their comfort zone, stretching themselves. And I think that's why the VIX index is lower than it was a couple months ago, is we've been there. We've seen the data. We continue to analyze the data, but we're hopeful that a solution's on the way. And so that type of optimism, I think, is going to bring some jobs back. I think it's going to bring some manufacturing to kick up again. I saw where Caterpillar the other day had a good earnings report, and they're starting to make things again. And so, yeah, I think the volatility, based on what we're seeing with the virus anyway, it's been pretty steady. That's been encouraging.
There's I think, just as I mentioned, this shift of supply and demand on, just different products, I think we're going to see a shift in our economy as a result of what's happened with coronavirus. And I don't recall if I mentioned this last week, but the unemployment in Indiana is right around 7%. Unemployment in places like New York and California is closer to 12 or 13%. Some of those activities that have happened in the last 12 months has shifted people's perspective, their emotions, their psyche. And I think what we're going to see is just a complete disruption of real estate in some of those metropolitan areas. And one of our clients mentioned that the value of their condominium in Chicago dropped 30% since March. I don't know what a vaccine or a treatment, if either of those are going to really drive demand back up for those condominiums. Maybe it will. I think there'll be some changes that have evolved. And I think part of that disruption comes from the very delivery mechanism we're using on this video is Zoom, is that if I can Zoom to my meetings and live 2 hours outside of New York City, why would I pay 10 times the cost of living in New York City versus 2 hours away? And then if I need to be in New York City, I can commute for 2 hours every once in a while rather than live there and pay that exorbitant expense. So there may be an opportunity if you want to live in New York City to get a bargain here before too long.
Well,
I hate to say that. It's just, it just is what it is.
Yeah, technology and innovation have both created that opportunity for people. I mean, that choice didn't exist. And now it's here and it's even acceptable. And so those are things that are creating freedom for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I think it also gives towns like Carmel or just Indianapolis that are pretty inexpensive to live in the opportunity to grow as well. I met with a group of people last Monday, and it was probably 25 to 30 people, and out of those 25 to 30, 3 of them had just moved from out of state into the Indianapolis area. So it's just another thing that I observed on. It's a good place to be in Carmel. I do. And just people are still moving. People are getting to new places. And so that could be beneficial for the people that already exist in Indy.
Evansville is where I grew up. And if you follow, which most of you won't because you have to be kind of a nerd like me, but if you follow economic history, transportation has often created the landscape of what makes a city and what makes it not a city, makes it a country. The river cities were cities because of transportation needs to get things across the country. Well, now we use the interstate system and trucks and trains and things like that. So if you happen to drive over the Ohio River and you look over the bridge there, you're not going to see many barges moving anything from point A to point B. And so those river cities don't need the transportation they once did. And so that's why, like in New York, it was a port town. That's why the activity happened there. Well, if the transportation is of information and the information can be transported in ways never known before, places like even small, like Sheridan, Indiana, or just places that you never thought of could be metropolitan areas 50 years from now. And so those are the thought processes I think investors really need to take into account is how is this changing the landscape? And it wasn't something that was a gradual evolution that you had to think through that might have taken a decade, is that it was forced on us. And consequently, you see how quickly the culture has adapted to it. And so now they're beginning to think, well, why am I paying these higher rents or higher real estate taxes? Why don't I move to some place that's more user-friendly? And I think you're going to see a mobility issue that's going to change the landscape. That's my opinion, for what it's worth.
I'm doing this call from the middle of nowhere right now. And, there's 2 internet providers here. That's it. And they're both expensive and not good. But the technology is getting better, and they're in competition. People, like you're saying, if they're relocating, the utilities will get better and better for rural America. And so that could be a big win. Keith and I, just before this call, we were talking about something I mentioned last week and have a correction to be made. I was describing the real rate of return versus the risk-free rate of return. The risk-free rate of return is basically your treasury. And we got online and we took a look at the treasury yields last week, and they weren't too exciting. And so either way, that real risk-free or the risk-free, it's pretty tough. It's challenging today to make any money at all that is somewhat conservative. And so as we look through these charts and look through these opportunities for you, we're looking for, again, the supply and demand. We're looking for the stuff that's in demand. We want to be in fashion in with your investments. And so that's what we're trying to do, is find those things that are those sectors that have some real growth to them. And so maybe that will be an internet company that moves itself to Leesburg, Indiana. I don't know, but there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of opportunity still at work. And I think that's just one of the tremendous pluses to having an open market free society like the one that we live in.
I'm a big fan of gouge pricing. And the media makes it a bad thing, and it's not if you study basic economics. And so gouge pricing is what happens after a tornado or some kind of disaster. And so if there's a tornado that goes through the Gulf Coast of Florida, and somebody brings generators down there for $2,000 a whack, the media is going to say they're gouging them and taking advantage of them. But that person had to probably come from Indiana with their pickup truck and their gun rack in the back to sell it for $2,000. And so that once the free enterprise learns that somebody's going to pay $2,000, and that's not going to be it's not going to be the poorest person in that area. It's going to be the person with that $2,000 in their pocket that can buy that generator. Once they learn that profit margin is there, is every other person that's got a pickup truck and a generator is going to get the supply of generators down there faster than the government can, faster than anything else. They're going to risk life and limb for that profit. And then all of a sudden the price is going to drop. It's going to drop a lot faster than without having gouge pricing. And so when you hear that term gouge pricing, it's not bad. It's just a scam that the media has made up to get rid of free enterprise, because what you're expressing right there, Doug, is gouge pricing, right? Your internet is gouge pricing. Well, if the profit margin is big enough there, somebody else is going to bring in their pickup truck a better solution to the internet, and the price is going to drop. So I think gouge pricing as a term is a scam, and it's not real, because supply and demand has a way of taking care of things much more efficiently than other solutions do. So if you hear me smirking or see me smirking when somebody mentions gouge pricing, I'm like, whatever, it's going to take care of itself. It doesn't, and it's not, if you've ever been to a disaster place, the government is not going to efficiently handle it. I've been to multiple ones, and it's an inefficient use of resources. So I'm excited to think that you will have high-speed internet in a lot of these places otherwise, because they can charge you such a high price right now. I'm thrilled that you're paying so much, Doug. Yeah,
it's really going to be cool to watch. I mean, just to think, this past spring, school buses were pulling up to neighborhoods in this community with a Wi-Fi router, and kids would come outside and gather around the bus to do their homework. So there's going to be some demand for it. It kind of reminds me of when I borrowed my friend Matt Lorenz's cell phone back in the mid 90s, and it was like this huge thing in his car, and it was probably like $1 a minute, and pretty quickly those prices came down.
They will. Well, I don't have any other brain cells to share with you guys this week. I've kind of gone out on a limb talking about gouge pricing and everything else. So.
Well, the last thing I'm going to say is maybe your brain cells are so dead, you got to take a vacation. So next week we'll be taking it off. A couple of us are going to be out of the office, and we just thought we'll see you in 2 weeks. So no email next week, no webinar next week. So we'll catch you on, I didn't even plan this ahead, but what's the following week we'll be here?
We'll be there then.
If I find the 30th, end of the month. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
see you guys soon.
Bye.